Let's take a closer look at what was moving underneath the surface. Abigail, what are you watching?
Scarlett, one stock certainly helping the markets today, Macy's. The markets might not be moving too much overall, but Macy's is on pace for its best day of the year, the second best performer in the S&P 500. Here's the GD function or the graphic dashboard for Macy's, a great way to get a snapshot of any stock. We see shares up 5.6%, again, the best day of the year on above average volume. We also see here that the stock is closer to its 52-week low. So these shares have really been under pressure today, bouncing higher. There's lots of analysts on hold, 5 sells, 4 buys. In terms of today's bullish action, it's not entirely clear what's behind it. Guggenheim recently was a bit bullish, and there's lots of bullish chatter. So some may be hoping for a bounce off of that bottom, supporting that possibility if they can execute when they report on May 15th, quite a ways away, is valuation. These shares remain trading at a nearly 30% discount to the peers. Those other peers pretty beaten up too. So Macy's may look attractive. It certainly does to some investors today. Buying up the shares of Macy's remain.
All right, thanks, Abigail. Well, Macy's the second biggest mover in the S&P 500. The number one mover in the S&P 500, though, Constellation Brands. We're seeing the shares up about 6% here as we head towards the close. That's on the back of that better than expected earnings report that they gave this morning. And I want you to take a look at the margins, because this is really the story here. Late last night, we actually got word that the company was selling off a bunch of its wines and spirits for about $1.7 billion to Ernest and Julio Gallo. The shares actually initially fell after hours on that. But here's the positive side. These are all cheaper wines, the ones that basically sold for under $11. And this wasn't real doing much for margins. On top of that, they just didn't have the sales growth. By moving and positioning the company more towards these sort of premium or at least higher price type of brands, whether it's in the wine space or with their beers like Corona and Modelo, that seems to be the future that Constellation is trying to position itself for. That's why you saw that margin spike, and that's why you're seeing the shares spike today. Luke?
Thanks, Romaine. You look today, you see kind of placid markets. You might think nothing's going on, but I actually see a pretty big endorsement of the state of the U.S. economy when you get under the hood of markets. And that's looking at two leading sectors today, which are both rate sensitive, but in the opposite direction. That's regional banks and home builders. George Perks at Bespoke Investment Group noted that the recent decline in mortgage rates was a pretty historic tailwind. We saw the big move in refi applications, and that supports the idea that the 10-year drop, it had that convexity hedging vortex element to it rather than something to fear about the U.S. economy. Then on the other hand, with regional banks, you have Joe talking earlier about those initial jobless claims, continuing claims also down, and the Atlanta Fed GDP Now estimate ticking to above 2%. On the other hand, what's keeping stocks from a better day? Those tech shares. And tech, as we know, has the highest foreign revenue exposure, so it's really not telling you that much about the U.S. economy.